Welcome everyone to Citizen Sports Talk here on Citizens Channel 20. I'm Caden Reinhard with Jacob Smith.
Hello everyone.
Here to talk about Floyd County and Carroll County sports here tonight. First, we'll be starting with some football action, Week 4 action, and I'll be tossing that off to Jacob Smith to lead us all there.
Yep, I think the big game for us this week, Caden, was the Buffaloes traveling to Gracie County. We talked about Gracie County a few weeks ago when they played at Carroll. When we covered that game, Gracie County was the 1A state championship runner-up, so they definitely have something to play for, and they are a state championship contender again this year, as we saw when we went to Patrick 2 weeks ago, or Carroll 2 weeks ago. But really a back and forth contest early for the Buffaloes and Blue Devils. One thing that stood out to me, Parker Dowell, a name we mentioned a lot when we covered the Blue Devils and Cavaliers matchup in Week 2. He got an early touchdown on the board for the Blue Devils, but other than that, it had been Sam Phillips. He had 3 touchdowns. Two of them came in the first half. And had a pretty big play at the end of the half, the hook and ladder, to get that real big lead for the Buffaloes, 27-17 at half. Jack Leroy had a 70-yard rushing touchdown, and it was a back and forth game, kind of like what we saw with, trying to think of a good example, kind of like what we saw a little bit with Blacksburg last week. Back and forth first half, high scoring. And then just kind of slowed down in the third quarter, which has been kind of a theme, because it feels like the third quarter for all 3 of the Buffaloes games have been kind of stagnant in the scoring department come the third quarter. But Floyd County was able to get 2 second-half touchdowns in the fourth quarter and come away with a Week 4 victory. They're 3-0. This is definitely going to be a big boost for them, knowing how the playoff format works. They're definitely going to get some rider points off of this victory, considering Gracie County already had 2 wins coming into tonight, one of them being at Carroll 2 weeks ago. And kind of transitioning to Carroll, they took care of business with Fort Chiswell this evening. 48-0 was the final. I don't really have anything else to say for that, aside from the fact that Carroll's taking care of business for the last 2 opponents that they've had. They've had a banged-up Galax team that had to forfeit their game with Radford this week. And then they were able to take care of Fort Chiswell tonight, which the Buffaloes will travel to Fort Chiswell next week. So definitely getting some Carroll County, Floyd County common opponents early between Gracie County and, by next week, Fort Chiswell as well. But just, if you want me to go ahead and transition into some other scores from around the region and the district. For the Three Rivers, Glenver defeated Northside 28-7. So the Highlanders are currently 4-0. The Bobcats, as I mentioned just a moment ago, they got the win as Galax had to forfeit their game this week. James River defeated Hidden Valley 50-0, so the Knights are 3-1 currently. Their lone loss came to Blacksburg in Blacksburg 2 weeks ago, and then Martinsville lost to Dan River 28-22. So, to my knowledge, they're the only team that's lost. I believe Patrick was up. We didn't really get a final score in their matchup with Chatham. A couple other score updates we missed, but Liberty had their Seminole District opener with Jefferson Forest, and they lost that one 43-8. So Liberty drops to 1-3 after the Week 1 opening win against William Campbell. And then looking at Carroll County, some score updates for their region for playoffs. Christiansburg lost to Lord Botetourt 42-7. Hidden Valley did lose to James River. I mentioned that a moment ago. Pulaski County lost to Stanton River 42-21. Northside, again, mentioned it earlier, the loss to Glenver. William Byrd lost to Bassett 35-44. That was a little bit of upset to me. Byrd was coming into the night 3-0. They leave now 3-1. Bassett moves up to 2-2 on the season. And Magna Vista stays undefeated with a 42-21 win against Franklin County. So that's really all I have between the Region 2C and Region 3D for football at the moment. If you want to transition to something else real quick before we take a quick break, or have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple quick thoughts in there on our two, both Carroll and the Floyd games. Firstly for Carroll, it'll be quicker. I think entering this game on the road against Fort Chiswell, it was, like you mentioned, it was supposed to be a statement victory for them, and that's exactly what they did. So moving forward for them, they have that momentum now. Building off of this that was the absolutely correct thing that they should have done, taking care of business in Fort Chiswell. And their only loss is against the Blue Devils, who the Buffaloes took on tonight. And transition into that, I thought once again it's been a testament to this conditioning that head coach Tim Crummer has given this Buffaloes roster. Not only the resilience to stay in these kind of grueling battles long into the fourth quarter, but you have players on both sides of the ball doing it. You mentioned Sam Phillips, his offensive efficiency, scoring, but he had an interception late in that fourth quarter, which kind of almost helped a hand in cementing that victory for the Buffaloes tonight. So he has both players on both sides of the ball that make impacts all throughout the night.
Absolutely, we'd have to agree with that. Looking at my notes, Aiden Bakley was a big player defensively. Talking about a more one-sided player defensively. Had a sack and a tackle for loss that resulted in a turnover on downs. That was a big momentum shift towards the start of the fourth quarter that was really able to help cement the Buffaloes' victory. But yeah, looking ahead, Carroll County takes on Patrick County at home. We'll be covering that game live here on CCTV Channel 20 next Friday. But the Buffaloes get to travel to Fort Chiswell now. Probably a little bit easier of a game given what they've started the year with Narrows, the Blacksburg, and then Grayson. So the Buffaloes may be looking at a 4-0 start going into their district play. They had the early bye too, so that probably helped them as well. And then I don't really know what else to add to that. I'm excited to go see how Carroll does with I'd like to say a little bit more competitive Patrick County team. They're sitting at 2-2 after tonight, more than likely. So really just wanting to, you've taken care of, you see it all the time at all levels. One thing to take care of the bad teams. It's another thing to play with more competitive teams and how you handle that challenge. Would you agree with that?
I think that's definitely the big takeaway from how both of these teams both played tonight, and for Floyd looking forward will be.
Yep. So I think we'll take a quick break. You're watching Citizen Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll take a look at some volleyball, cross country, and golf. I don't believe we have too much to update there, but we'll take a look at volleyball and how things look there. You're watching Citizen Sports Talk here on CCTV Channel 20. Welcome back to Citizen Sports Talk. Jacob Smith, Caden Reinhardt. Jumping back in, talking about some volleyball. Lady Bus Volleyball had 3 games this week. They hosted the Grayson County Blue Devils on Monday, the Martinsville Bulldogs on Wednesday, and then traveled to Carroll County to play the Lady Cavaliers on Thursday. They lost to the Blue Devils on Monday, 3-0. Took care of business with Martinsville, won 3-0, and then lost to Carroll 3-1 last night. So a total of 7 points gained for the Lady Buffs this week through the 3 games. Looking at the number right now, they're sitting with their total points in about 9th. So they're kind of in that in the hunt range for the regional tournament for volleyball, but, they're only halfway through the season, so we'll have to wait and see how things look there. But as for Carroll, talking about that Thursday win for them, that moved them up to 9-4 on the year for volleyball. So they've had a pretty successful year halfway through the season for volleyball. Didn't know, is there anything else you need to add to that? Just reading things off real quick, just recapping volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, I think both programs have been able to solidify solid starts to their seasons. I mean, Floyd's season has definitely been a bounce back from what it was last year. So
Years past,
the jump for them has been, I would say, a definitely step in the right direction.
Yeah, Floyd's sitting at 4-5 right now, but given how things looked just 2 years ago, only 2 wins on the year, definitely four wins back-to-back years, and we're not even halfway through the season. Definitely promising. Especially, it may not look too promising right now, but I think it's definitely looking promising down the road, even though it may take a few years to really get the ball rolling. But if you want to go ahead and take over on what's coming up this week for Carroll and Floyd athletics.
Yeah, so it's a busy slate for both Floyd and Carroll this week. We'll start with the Buffaloes. So tomorrow morning, an early one at 9:30, heading up towards Allegheny to take on both their boys and girls cross-country teams. Then transition into Monday, golf junior varsity team will be hosting Auburn. And then we have a volleyball middle school game at Glenver. Then on Tuesday, the 23rd, golf will be traveling towards Carroll County and playing a middle school match at Old Mill. And then as well, volleyball, all 3 teams will be playing the middle school, JV, and varsity, of course. They will be hosting James River. Wednesday, we'll have a varsity golf match where the Buffaloes will host Auburn at Great Oaks, as well as the JV team will be hosting Carroll at the same time, so a little dual action there at Great Oaks that day. As well as Wednesday afternoon football, we'll have middle school and JV taking on Fort Chiswell at home. So then Thursday, right before next week's Buffaloes traveling game, the volleyball team once again will be having a triple header with their middle school through varsity teams traveling towards Radford to take on the Bobcats there. So now for the Cavaliers, tomorrow morning as well, they'll be traveling down towards Marion to take on James River for their cross-country boys and girls teams. Then Monday they have a varsity match at home against a handful of district opponents. The JV golf team will be traveling, of course, mentioned that golf match here at Great Oaks. Then their volleyball team hosting Pulaski, all middle school, JV, and varsity there. So Tuesday afternoon for the Cavaliers, it will be as well at Old Mill, their golf team hosting a district match against multiple teams there. And then back-to-back game actions for their volleyball team right after hosting Pulaski. They get to host the Bobcats in Radford, all 3 middle school, JV, and varsity. Then Wednesday afternoon, it is cross-country, their boys and girls at James River. And then as well, Thursday afternoon, their volleyball team will be traveling towards Martinsville, middle school, JV, and varsity. And then wrapping that up for that week will be JV football will be hosting Patrick Middle School and JV there.
Definitely, you said at the start with 2 busy weeks for both Carroll and Floyd County, but it kind of gets wrapped up with 2 big matchups next week. Carroll County hosting Patrick County, week 5 action. It's crazy to think we're already almost halfway through the football season, but I think it'll start a Three Rivers play. That'll be pretty exciting to see, the first district contest for both schools. Well, actually, I take that back. Patrick County played Martinsville week 1, which doesn't. It's going to take a little while to get used to saying Martinsville's a district opponent, but yeah, Patrick County's already gotten a taste of how the Three Rivers District's going to be this year. Didn't start off too strong for them, but excited to see what both schools or both teams bring to the table next Friday. We'll be in Hillsville covering that one, and the Buffaloes will be traveling to Fort Chiswell, taking on the Pioneers, and what we talked about earlier. Given how the year went for them, they have an 0-4 start. It'll probably be a Buffaloes win in Fort Chiswell week 5, but can't be too certain. You know, anything can happen any given Friday, so there's only so much to say there, but I think that'll wrap up anything unless you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting getting back into a booth next week. You know, tonight both Floyd and Carroll, were on the road, so just the studio show for us tonight.
Just getting ready to say it's a little weird, you know, coming into the studio, not having the adrenaline from, you know, being at a football game on a Friday night, but you know, that'll be the case some nights. You know, we'll be here following a game sometimes, and you know, just coming in, filming here in the studio. So we'll get that a couple more times this football season, but you know, definitely a good evening off, if you will, from the booth. But like you said, I'm excited to get back. I'm just excited as you are to get back into it next week. So I think that'll wrap everything up we have here tonight. Jacob Smith,
Caden Reinhard.
and thank you for watching Citizen Sports Talk. Go Buffaloes and go Cavaliers.